Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Love Letters, Life and Other Conversations. It's my turn this week to choose the springboard that Wendy and I talk about, and this week I am going to talk about vulnerability and what it feels like. Such an important subject, one that really, shapes all our lives. So I hope that you enjoy this episode of Love Letters, Life and Other Conversations.
Hi, Wendy. How are you today?
Hi, Jane. I'm amazing. How are you?
I am very well. And I'm actually really looking forward to our chat today.
I'm so glad. I am too. We have a beautiful day in Massachusetts. We have, I'm hoping, my fingers are crossed, that we've moved past the heat waves.
So we too have had a little reprieve in the heat wave, which is fabulous.
Oh, it's
nice.
So lovely. Yes. It was 54 degrees this morning when I got up. So I want to say that's maybe 11 or 12 for you.
Okay. It was 18 when I woke up this morning, but even that was just delightful.
Right. It's so nice. I've had the windows open for 3 days.
Yeah. Well, Pete has had the front and the back doors open wide for 24 hours, just letting a breeze through. And I've had the bedroom window open for weeks at night.
Oh, so nice.
We don't really get mosquitoes here.
That's a gift. We have screens. We have screens on our windows. That's why my windows are open.
Yeah. Well, we just have big, you've seen them, big French windows.
Awesome.
And there aren't screens.
Right.
But anyway, we don't have a mosquito problem, and mosquitoes love my blood. So I would know if they were here.
Well, and has it been dry? You haven't had much rain. For Jeff.
Oh my gosh.
There's no rain.
It's like my sunburned country in Australia here at the moment.
We're having a similar summer. So it's not good for the grass, but it's also really beneficial for me and the mosquito population, because I just think there aren't very many.
No, and you like us would not have had to have mown.
Which is so great, because both of my lawn tractors have been getting serviced, and I haven't had access to them for 3 weeks. It would have been a jungle if this was a normal summer. So I'm so surrendered to the universe, knowing what I need when I need it. I'm just here for it. It's so lovely.
Good for you. That's fantastic.
It's a lovely feeling.
Well, it is a lovely feeling. I've been using that sort of expression of surrendering myself to whatever comes my way on a daily basis. I know you and I are both doing a year of miracles at the moment. I was saying to you a little bit earlier that I might be doing day 28 or 29 or whatever day I'm doing, but I go back to some favorites. And I think it was day 5 or day 4 where it says surrender to the universe, surrender. And I'm trying to use that every day.
Good reminder.
It is. Shall I read for you what I would like to discuss today?
Yes, please.
Okay, it's quite lengthy. Okay, so I don't expect, but I don't expect us to discuss every minutia of it. But it is also all encompassing. So I think it'll be easy for us to have a discussion about.
I don't think it takes much for us to have a discussion about anything.
No. It was something that popped up on my feed on Instagram this morning, or yesterday, actually, I think. Molly Burford. And the title to what she wrote yesterday was this: what does vulnerability feel like? And this is what she said. Vulnerability is inviting someone to sit next to you, even though there are plenty of other seats they could choose at the party instead. Vulnerability is admitting you don't know something and saying, I was wrong. Vulnerability is giving a speech at your favorite person's funeral. Vulnerability is naked emotion. It is letting someone see you with a mascara painted face and defeated eyes. It is the unlocking of your heart on your wrist and an open mind. Vulnerability is asking for help. It is offering your hand too. Vulnerability is telling someone that they hurt your feelings, even though they might refuse to apologize. Vulnerability is accepting that some people will not change, no matter how much you wish they would. It is trying again. It is admitting, I want to break up. It is understanding friends can shatter your heart too. Vulnerability is realizing that family isn't just crimson. Vulnerability is saying, I love you first. It is sharing your first draft. It is waiting at the doctor for any news at all. It is hoping for the best without any evidence. It is showing your scars. It is revealing how those wounds came to be. Vulnerability is saying, I can't do this on my own. Vulnerability is necessary. Vulnerability is connection. Vulnerability is the foundation of love.
That is so beautiful. Thank you.
I knew you'd like it.
I do love it.
Oh my gosh, I read it 5 or 6 times today.
It's really, really beautiful. And I love the length of it, even that there's a handle for every single person listening. They can resonate.
Oh, it's all encompassing, right?
One of those definitions. Yes. Oh, it's beautiful. I love the vulnerability is asking for help and offering your hand.
Oh, yeah.
So that you're not, I just love the dichotomy of that, because it is vulnerable to ask for help, depending on your personality type, depending on your current situation, depending on how much of your story you're feeling safe to share that would justify your need to ask for help. I mean, there's so much in just asking for help is such a multi-layered piece.
Such a huge thing. You know, Wendy, that really spoke to me as well. A few weeks ago, I asked a friend. Well, I didn't ask a friend. I said, I need my friend. I need my friend. Now, I have got a handful of wonderful friends.
Sure.
As I know you do as well. But I got really vulnerable and I said, I need my friend to a particular friend.
Well, I mean,
because she knew the history, she knew the nuance, she knew the innuendo, and I needed her. And so I asked for it.
I have a closet full of shoes. There are some days where I need a particular pair of shoes that the other shoes are not going to fit the role of what I need.
Oh, I love that you've just said that. You know, I was reading this out. We have a gorgeous young guy here at the moment who is helping Pete in the potager.
Oh, nice.
And his older brother was here about 4 years ago. And so Pete said, you know, I'm just saying yes to Will because Jamie was such a delightful young man and we just know that will be as well. And I said, yes, I'm sure he will be.
Yes.
He will be.
Will be.
And yeah, will be. And anyway, I went out at 4:00 and said, Pete and Dave, a friend of ours from the Netherlands, was sitting at the table, and Will was sitting there, and they said, what are you about to do? You know, because I'm always about to do something. And I said, I'm about to record my podcast with Wendy. And Will said, what are you talking about today? Is it your turn? Because he's been here a month.
Oh my gosh, how cute.
And he knows. And I said,
love it.
would you like to hear it? And he said, I would. And I thought, oh, this is going to be funny, because I know that Pete and Dave would not want to hear it. Well, well, Dave squirmed around on his chair, which I teased him about later. And the minute I'd finished reading that beautiful piece by Molly Burford, and I said, vulnerability is the foundation of love, Pete said, oh, vulnerability is when you're playing cricket and the cricket ball hits you in the scrotum.
Oh.
And I said, and of course you would say that.
Right.
Of course you would, Pete, because that's vulnerability, right? But it does make me laugh, because you've now actually talked about the shoes and talked about the fact that different shoes are required for different days. And I totally get that, but I thought it was a good moment to give the boys' perspective of what vulnerability is.
Well, thank you.
We all had a bit of a laugh.
Right.
But I totally agree. But on that, Wendy, is women's vulnerability different to men's, or is it just a human thing? Different humans have different ways of expressing their vulnerability.
I think that is true. I think that there's also, in every conversation, in every exchange of every emotion, there are different elements that different players bring to it. And I think that in that example, what I would be most mindful of is, how am I showing up in those different scenarios? So am I changing as I go to with these different people, or is my experience the same and I'm learning about them in that process? Or do I show up in a different way with a different group, and it's a completely rhetorical question. Like, I think that for many years I did maybe morph to, as a strategy, as maybe even a survival tactic of, I'm in this group of people, they value this, I'm going to make sure that I'm operating in this filter. And then when I'm in another group of people, not being manipulative or losing myself, well, maybe losing myself a little bit, but just trying to, I'm a high functioning codependent. So I'm sure I was trying to manage everybody's comfort level at the detriment of my own. And something that has really been in the works for the last 2 years and is continuing to be honed each and every day is, I show up for me now. And I'm not a jerk to the people that are in my circle, but I also am exercising this muscle of hearing what people have to say and taking the pieces that are in alignment for me without feeling like I need to implement every single thing that they've given me as advice, that I have to take the whole package and that everybody knows more than I do. And I should just listen to what everyone has to say and do what they suggest because surely they know. That's something that I am transitioning out of. And it was scary at the beginning. And now it's gross to think that I used to not have in my own opinion. So it just is so far from who I am now to do that. But I remember that I used to be her.
And you've hit the nail on the head, because vulnerability is that knowing that you can be easily hurt or attacked. You know, I love vulnerability comes from the Latin word for wound, which is vulnus. And it's and vulnerability is the state of being open. So you open up yourself to injury or to being hurt, but appearing authentically and honestly. You know, every time I have a hard conversation that I think someone isn't going to like, I just remind myself that I don't want to go back to beige.
Exactly. And
I don't want to go back to beige.
This evolution.
I want to have real connection, authentic connection, and real and authentic has to include the wound.
Right.
And the possibility that you will be hurt.
And the idea of that prior to its practice seems so scary, can seem so scary, that you think that's I'm never doing that. Do you have any idea what these people will do to me if I show up in my truth? Are you kidding? And then once you do it, you cannot unfeel that.
There is no
that. You are not going back. So actually,
you're not going back.
It's a very big decision. It's a very big decision, because once you decide, with anything, once you decide, like, that's it. You will not be the same. And I have a feeling you're really going to like her, and you're going to keep going.
Yeah. But some people will crack open, and then they will try and put the polyfiller back in and close themselves up again. There's nothing to do about that if that happens. You just have to let people, run their own race and walk their own road and get to different signposts as they get there.
Right. I had a coach that I'm still working with, but she said to me, I'm looking at my note, she said to me probably 8 or 9 months ago, this phrase that I immediately wrote down, put it on a sticky note. It's right in front of my computer. I look at it so many times during the day, and it reads, own your experience.
Own your experience.
I'm in control of my decision to be vulnerable. I'm in control of how I show up. And however that lands on the other person's ears, and whatever decisions they make for themselves in response to what I've said, or inspired by my vulnerability, like, that is all their experience.
That's right.
I just need to stay in my own lane and own my experience. And in so doing, I am being vulnerable. I am creating the life that I want. I am doing what delights me. I am growing and expanding into this beautiful person that I actually enjoy being around very much. And I am desiring to grow in that and in that practice every single day.
So I want to ask you, Wendy, vulnerability is showing your scars.
I wrote that down.
But it is also revealing how those scars came to be. Where did the wounds come from? What do you think of that?
I actually wrote that down also, so I'm so glad that you mentioned it. I think that another message that I heard probably a year ago that that reminded me of is when you're talking about something, of course, like in your inner circle, that doesn't matter. But for something that I would say I'm going to talk about on this podcast, speaking from a scar rather than a wound is preferred.
Yes,
because there's perspective. I can speak to a lesson learned. And so, but in the context of this reading and the vulnerability of showing your scars and sharing the story, I think is the willingness and the opportunity to say how I got the scar, what I thought the lesson was at the time, what I have continued to learn from that scar, and maybe even a new realization of what the lesson is. So I think that even in the sharing of our scars, we have the opportunity to continue to learn from whatever caused it. So even if it happened when, whatever this scar causing event was, there was a message in it and there was an experience in it at the time. And some people, we all know them, they retell that same story over and over and over and over and over again, rehash it. And then there are some people that say, this happened and this is how I responded to it. And now looking back, I can see how it catapulted me to this other place. And I've learned 132 other things because of that. And I'm so grateful for my scars because they made me who I am today.
Absolutely. And I mean, that is the person that says this is happening for me, not to me.
100%.
So I agree totally. Every scar tells a story. Every scar, every wound changes you. Every scar makes you more beautiful.
I think so.
The scars that are in your heart or the open wounds that are in your heart tell your stories of your bravery and of your vulnerability. Every time you think or that scar or that wound bleeds a little bit, and I always think of that in terms of tears and, having a little bit of a meltdown. I always try to remember. I remember being at university. There was a boy that I went out with for 4 years and he cheated on me. And so that was the end as far as I was concerned, because I would never trust a cheater. I know there's a lot of people that believe that you can come back from cheating, but I don't. But for years, that wound would hit me occasionally. But it reminded me of falling in love and how much I did love him. How much it reminded me of the very first time I ever kissed him. And he looked at me and said, "Don't ever hurt me, McAlpine." That was my surname.
Right.
And I said, how would I ever hurt you?
Right.
How would I ever hurt you? And I never did. He was the one that hurt me. There's always the little embroideries and the little tapestry of events that happen to make up the whole picture. Whenever my heart scars hit me, I try to remember the beautiful bit.
That's a gorgeous practice.
Because we've all had them. And if we can remember that, it reminds you that you've been loved more than once.
Right.
It can remind you, that your heart does break. And look, I've got 4 kids that range from 22 to 30, and I'm dealing with broken hearts. and I will deal with more broken hearts, I'm sure. I say to the kids, there is no pure joy. There is no heights of love and joy and ecstasy without having been in the absolute pits of heartbreak.
That's right.
You cannot understand one without the other.
That's right. That must be so heartbreaking to witness and hold space for your kids having a broken heart. I would rather, we say it all the time as a mom, like I would rather feel all the pain and have them be, and I know it's a rite of passage and I know it's going to happen and all of those things, but just wanting to protect them. I mean, I'm just thinking of Amelia. She's 8. She'll have a broken heart. Like it's going to happen. And, it just, that must be really challenging. I'm glad you're going first. You can tell me how to navigate.
It is challenging, but I've learned very quickly that the best thing I can do is just, as you say, hold space. Mm-hmm. So, we had a big broken heart here last year. Mm. And I literally sat on the couch and watched movies with the broken heart for 5 weeks.
Right.
Cried with the broken heart, made meals for the broken heart. But my kids have done that to me, done that for me as well. Because a few years back, I had a broken heart with a friendship. Someone broke my heart into 1,000 pieces.
I'm sorry.
And you know what? I was vulnerable.
Right.
And the person who broke my heart couldn't be.
Right. And you had to choose you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we all have these crazy adventures and amazing connections, and if we're open to it.
Right.
And that's what messy life is about.
Right. And I think that is such the gift of vulnerability. And it could be one of the reasons why it's a scary word for some people, because it feels like the edge of a cliff, because it's the edge of a cliff. That's why it feels like it. And you aren't the same on the other side of it, but you're not maimed. You think you're going to be maimed. You're not maimed.
No, you're not maimed.
I experienced just the most gorgeous gift yesterday. In my morning routine, I was journaling, and I'm preparing for my trip to France. I'll be in France all of September, and I have 2 groups, and I'm so excited. So I had calls with my Paris ladies on Sunday night, and then right after that, lovely. I had a call with the cookbook project ladies, and it's just so fun to be talking to them. I mean, I feel like we've already had the best time, and we haven't even packed our suitcases yet, but there are different personalities, and there's different, it's just fun. And then I think, oh gosh, these women do not know each other, and we're all going to be in a chateau, which is brilliant and fabulous. If you find that brilliant and fabulous, if you find that oh, wait a minute, wait, what did I just sign up for? So in my journaling yesterday morning, I got this download that I'm just going to ask everybody. I sent an email and I just said, I want you to answer one question. I desire ... I want to know, what do you desire this 7-day trip to be? And I want you just to stream of consciousness, let it all out, do not edit it, and then just hit send. Just send it to me. I just want to know. Oh my word. The most gorgeous responses of what women are, what their intentions are for this trip. I feel so unbelievably honored to journey with these women, not just physically on an airplane, but spiritually.
Are you all flying? Are you flying together?
No.
Yeah.
But like we are going on a journey, an actual journey, but just to listen to these intentions and listen to these beautiful desires. I could imagine that I, at one point in my life, might have thought, oh, geez, I got to bring it because these people have some high standards. But when I read it, I just thought, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful, because what we focus on grows. And because they want this gorgeous, transformative experience, and none of them wrote in that, I expect you to get me a table at the best restaurant, and I expect you to get an Uber that's on time and is the color I want. I mean, no one was being unreasonable. They were all desiring something that they were giving themselves, and they were open to receive it themselves. And I just get to bear witness. How is this my job? This is so
Wendy, I don't know whether I ever told you the very first French table group I ever had 17 years ago. I dropped them in front of the florist in the Vieux Marché at Rouen. And I said, just have a little wander around the florist and the undercover market. I'll be back in a minute. It might take me 10 minutes to find a park. Well, I found a park within about 3 minutes, which was great. And I remember getting my...
Hail Mary, full of grace, please find me a parking
Hail Mary,
space.
full of grace, please find me a parking space. And I just grabbed my trolley, my market trolley, out of the back of the van. I drive around in the 9-seater. And I got the trolley out of the van, and I literally stood there and I pinched myself. I pinched myself that I was about to embark on my new job.
It's so gorgeous.
Yeah. So I completely get what you're saying, that you get to do this as a job. And that's what I was saying to my friends on Saturday. I was talking to you about it before, that we went to this beautiful big brocante antique market. And then after we'd been there, and we all got something. I got 8 beautiful little coquilles Saint-Jacques, Pilivette, white china plate, which,
gorgeous.
Will have one beautiful plump scallop on it when the season starts, with a beurre blanc sauce and some freshly snipped chives from my garden. Everyone got something. And then I said, let's go to this other village that I'd been wanting to go to for a long time. And we found this beautiful restaurant. While we were driving there, I'm Googling, and I found 3 restaurants and rang 3 restaurants and got tables at each of them. And when we got into town, I said, okay, let's look at all 3 restaurants and then let's decide which one we'll go to, and I'll cancel the other 2. Brilliant. So we did that, and we had the most beautiful lunch. And as we finished lunch, the guy came up and he said, how was your entrecôte, madame? And I said, that was one of the nicest steaks I have had in years. And he said, well,
and we order that all the time. So I know you're an expert.
Yeah. It's my favorite, a steak frit. And he said, well, it comes from the butcher across the road. You might want to go and visit. And as we walked out of the restaurant, I looked up, and there is this fromagerie next door, where we walked in and we got talking to the guy. And my friend Mish was ordering cheeses for that night, and some cheese that she had him cry back to take home to Australia and for her family. We were buying one of his camemberts that had been rolled in Calvados infused sugar.
Yes, please.
And I said, that looks really delicious. He said, I make that myself. And I said, I have guests every month. Would you be interested in me bringing my little groups here? I'll bring the champagne and the cut-lead crystal flute. We could watch you, make this beautiful camembert.
It's so dreamy.
He said, I would love for you to do that. I said, and then we'll go next door to where we've just had lunch, and we'll have a beautiful lunch. And he said, I would love you to do that. He said, here's my card and here's my email, and you just tell me what dates you want. And all of a sudden, and I walked out of there and I said to the rest of the group, which were all friends who were staying for the weekend, I said, I cannot believe how I feel. I've just had a beautiful lunch. I've just found a new village. I've just found a new place to buy cheese. And then we walked into a carve 2 doors up, and the guy in there was divine. And friend Mish again was buying some Runa champagne for dinner that night. And I said to him, you know, we've just been to this restaurant, we've just been to the fromagerie, and, you know, what I'm thinking is that we could have a late afternoon aperitif with you. And he said, I'll do a champagne tasting with the special wafers from Champagne that they serve. I said, I know what you're talking about. And I said, that would be just, and I got in the car and I said to the driver, who was one of the guys who was staying for the weekend, I said, now I know how my guests feel, because I have just experienced a whole lot of new things today. And I had forgotten Wendy. I'd forgotten what it was like.
That is so gorgeous.
To experience something new. I'd completely forgotten. I mean, I love going to Germany. I love going to the market at Deville. I love going to Mont Saint Michel at 4 a.m. in the morning and being the only ones walking the ramparts before we go up to the Abbey. I love all of those things. But they're not new to me anymore.
Right.
As you rightly said to me, and that is because you gave yourself permission to have August off.
Right.
You could have put it on Instagram and been full and taken more guests for the month, but you chose to give it to yourself. And I'm so glad I did.
And that was a vulnerable decision that you made.
It was.
Because after not having guests for 2 years from the pandemic, and it makes every bit of business sense to sell what you need to sell and do what you need to do. And the fact that you listened to your body, listened to your intuition, took that time off, you were vulnerable, but you were open to receive and own gifts. It is only, we're only halfway through the month. Just imagine the rest of the gifts.
I know. Well, exactly. Anyway.
I love that.
I know.
Wins.
Vulnerability wins. What are your takeaways from today, my friend?
I really loved the piece was beautiful, and I enjoyed the times that the author put it on both sides. So for example, the asking for help and the offering a hand. And there's vulnerability in both actions. And it's not just in the setting yourself up to receive. There's a double blessing in vulnerability, because you give yourself the gift, you give yourself a gift in inviting somebody in, and you give the other person the gift of walking through that door, accepting that invitation. And it
absolutely. And particularly, you know, vulnerability is saying, I love you first.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know whether there's something in the age, but I've got 3 friends. I've got 3 friends that I tell them regularly that I love them. I was the first one, because I think once you practice initiating something or being vulnerable and in the moment just saying, you know what, I really love you, I really treasure you.
Right.
Then the other person's like, oh my gosh, me too. I really love you too. I mean, there's no better feeling in the world.
That is true. And sometimes you don't get the me too right away.
Oh, I know.
I remember when Keith and I were dating, he had never said I love you to anybody before that wasn't in his family. And you know me. I've said I love you to everyone. I love pizza. I love ice cream. I love you. I love you. I mean, that's a different kind of love, but I grew up in a family that we actually, if you passed each other in the hall and didn't say I love you, we called a family meeting. Like those words.
Okay.
Naturally, right?
Okay.
So he would drop me off from a date and I would walk in and tell my roommates, let me just say, I love Keith Patrick Harrop. And someday he's going to say it. Someday I'm going to say it out loud to him. And someday he's going to say it back. And I got in that habit of saying it to them. And then I was vulnerable and I said it to him first. And as soon as I was done, I said, and you don't have to say it. I'm not saying it for you only anymore. I'm saying it for me because those words are so big, they don't even fit inside my body anymore. And I have to say them out loud. And in giving him that space to not say it back, I probably, it might have been 6 or 8 weeks, which in dating I love you years is 137 years of not saying it back. But then it held space for him. So when he did finally say it, and the earth continued to rotate on its axis, and the heavens didn't fall and everything kept going, then it became very natural for him to say it too. And that vulnerability is going first. And sometimes it's going first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, and really rooting that in and being true to yourself, even when it's not reciprocated.
Yes. Oh my gosh. We might have to do something on reciprocation another week.
Right.
Because at what point do you stop when it's not reciprocated?
I think it depends who you are, but if you're the current version of Wendy Harrop, you own your experience, and the things you're saying for you, and they're your truth. And my truth is my truth, regardless of how that lands on your experience. And you have to, respond in a way that's true to you. Yeah. I mean, I also think if the horse is dead, dismount, but
but I love vulnerability as the foundation of love.
For sure.
Yeah. Oh, I've loved our conversation today, my friend.
Thank you. Me too.
Loved this conversation, my friend. And I really look forward to next Tuesday. I feel like I know with every fiber of my being what vulnerability feels like. After the last 45 minutes of chat. Chittity, chat. Or as my husband would say, the clatter and chatter.
Oh. Well,
you also some clatter and chatter.
Yes, we are off for chatter and clatter. I've loved this conversation. I appreciate you. Have a beautiful rest of your day.
You too, Wendy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.